years before Elizabeth Keckley graced history as the first Black fashion designer or seamstress, there was a free Black woman who was the seamstress to the First Lady. Have you ever heard about her? Welcome back to Fashion Meets History with Domii. Let's get into another episode of the Black women behind the First Ladies. Her name was Teresa, and while there is very limited information about her, we know that she existed and we know her name because First Lady Sarah Polk employed her as a free Black seamstress during her husband James K. Polk's presidency between 1845 and 1850. So far in this series, we've talked about a First Lady whose enslaved seamstress ran away, and we've talked about another First Lady whose enslaved seamstress was quite literally a part of a kidnapping plot and was sold away. But now we have the opportunity to talk about the free Black woman seamstress. This is particularly important because we define Elizabeth Keckley and the presidency of Abraham Lincoln and his wife Mary Todd Lincoln as the defining moment where women of this caliber in the fashion world finally got some of the recognition that they deserved. So to hear that there historically is another woman who was able to achieve a similar status is, in my opinion, wonderful to hear. While little is known about Teresa, we do have information about the woman who employed her, First Lady Sarah Polk. Similarly to Martha Washington and Dolly Madison, Sarah Polk was also a slaveholder. She came from a wealthy, slave-owning Southern family, and throughout her life was noted to have numerous enslaved servants who worked as seamstresses for her. She's also known for her religious conservatism. But what's fascinating about Mrs. Polk is that even in spite of her Southern religious conservatism, she was still known as a fashion trendsetter, even before becoming First Lady. As a member of a wealthy Southern family, she had access to a lot, which I'm sure contributed to why she was regarded for her fashion as well as her political acumen. In the history and the research about Sarah, it notes how influential she was on James K. Polk's presidency and his whole political career, and how astute of a politician's wife she was. Very much Nelly and Fitz without the Olivia Pope. And what's so fascinating to me about that is that a woman who is able to be that politically astute and aware and has a level of privilege because of her family being wealthy and holding influence, she was able to receive her education. She was able to move about society and define terms of society as a regular citizen and as the top of the political food chain. So a woman who is able to have all that, employing a free Black woman in the time period before the Civil War, where tensions were increasingly rising because of the abolitionist movement, the difference of ideologies between the North and South when it comes to slavery and all of the things in between. That decision to employ a free Black woman, it's really something to think about, because you were astute enough to know that her skill set was what you wanted. It had to be of top tier because that's the level of quality that she was used to. And she didn't just use Teresa as a seamstress for herself. It said that she also used Teresa for garments for other family members of hers. So this woman had to be extremely well regarded in her field. Now, it could totally be that it was the exceptional Negro trope, right? You're better than the rest. We don't know because we don't have the information on Teresa. But it's just food for thought and really enticing things to think about as we're talking about the Black women behind the First Ladies. Because Sarah Polk, if we didn't get to this already, was not an abolitionist, and neither was her husband. Very, very, very Southern, believed in slavery. Right now, we would just say conservative, but very, very opposed to the idea that Black people, male or female, should have rights equal to that of white men and women. So the decision to employ and use and promote a free Black woman in DC to be the seamstress for your dresses first lady is really profound. And it had the opportunity to be a really grand political statement. Like, Mary Todd Lincoln really made a defining statement by basically stealing away Elizabeth Keckley as her personal stylist. Even though Elizabeth Keckley already had a name for herself in DC, she was the seamstress for many, many prominent members of Congress, so on and so forth. But Mary Todd Lincoln made her exclusive to herself during the Lincoln presidency. And that means something, not only because of their friendship and the intricacies and all of that, but simply for the political statement that it made and the fashion statement that it made. And if we're looking through the lens of 2026, that was a missed moment and opportunity for the Polk administration. Or if we look at it from the lens of the 1840s and 1850s, was it something that they just kept quiet about? Is that why we don't have a lot of information about Teresa and her work with Sarah Polk? Either way, Teresa is another Black woman who pushed the fashion of another first lady without the recognition that she deserved for her hard work. Because, like Martha Washington and like Dolly Madison, Sarah K. Polk was noted for her defining fashion choices, keeping up with the most elaborate and intricate forms of the changing fashion landscape. Sarah Polk was very, very into French fashion, as was Dolly Madison, and she kept the shifts in French fashion mirrored here in American fashion, meaning that Teresa wasn't just skilled at making a nice dress. She was skilled in basically like haute couture, if we really think about it. Even though haute couture wasn't developed until around the 1880s, that's basically what it is, because she and any other seamstress working for Sarah Polk was designing in that formal of a manner. If it was an inauguration dress or if it was just a regular Tuesday First Lady dress. So her craftsmanship had to be really, really impeccable. And to just think about the artistry and the skill that would have gone into this, being able to figure out and give a semblance of recognition for that is very important. Even though we don't know much about Teresa's story, we can assume, like most Black women, she came from a family of other Black women who used fashion to push themselves up economically and socially to get the access and the resources that their families needed. And like the other Black women behind the First Ladies, Teresa, we salute your hard work. Stay tuned for more Fashion Meets History with Domii.